Hey guys, Caleb Bakes01 here finally today with my first ever random album review. Everyone that comes to my channel for horror content are probably like, what the fuck at the moment. But I did say in my channel introduction that this channel is still going to be mostly horror. I would say 60-70% horror, but the rest is going to be music, because honestly music is just a bigger part of my life as what horror movies are. So obviously I still want to put out music content, even though so far I've got a lot of people I feel like that regularly watch my horror content, but hopefully you can jump on board with this too, or even if it's not your thing, there is more horror content coming your way. And if you've new to this channel and you're into this music content, welcome, and hopefully you enjoy. And to kick off my first ever random album review, we have the album by one of my favourite bands of all time, Blink-182, from 2016, their album California. So as I said, Blink-182 being one of my favourite bands of all time, if we want to put it at a round number, I'd say easily in the top 10, safely in the top 5 even. And I remember when this album came out, it came out, as I said, in 2016, so I would have been 15 years old. And this was my first ever new taste of Blink-182, as in, I was finally at an age where I was conscious and aware that new music came out and I could try and stay on top of when it was coming out. And I remember reading through all these articles, reading that Blink's going to have a new album come out, and counting down the days on my calendar once I knew what date it dropped at. And it was such an exciting time for me. Also, I was very wary, knowing that they had a little break between albums, and Tom DeLonge, who had been in every album previous to this one with Blink-182, was no longer a part of it, and now they introduced Matt Skiba from Alkaline Trio. I was wary that 15-year-old me might have not been so welcoming and it could have put me off, so even though I was very excited for the album, I was also very nervous at the same time. But as I said, I was marking down the days on my calendar. I was very excited for this album to drop, and we'll get straight into the review. So the album opens with fast-paced song Cynical, which to me isn't one of my favourite tracks, not quite the way I wanted the album to open. However, if you put that aside, it has Bored to Death, the first single that dropped for the album, and I remember when this song came out, especially back then, it held a very strong spot in my heart, because as I said, it was the first taste of new Blink for a time where, as I said, I first became aware that new music was coming out, and Bored to Death was played everywhere, and I still think it's one of their more popular new songs. You know, if you look back over their past, let's say, 3 albums, I feel like Bored to Death is still up there with most people's favourites. She's Out of Her Mind is also very to tradition Blink-182 sounding song. So I feel like the opening 3 tracks for the album are pretty solid. However, it gets to the 4th song, Los Angeles, which once again, sort of like Cynical, doesn't quite land for me, but we start to go into a little bit more of an experimental sound with that song. As I said, doesn't quite land for me. But then you go into 2 really, really catchy songs, probably the most catchiest song on the album, Sober, and then into another really quick song, sort of like Cynical, but Built This Pool, which, as I said, once again, really super catchy, really fast-paced, and it's got that, once again, funny, amusing, but still fun, upbeat Blink-182 sound. Now, after coming off those absolute tunes being Sober and Built This Pool, it kind of dies off again. It sort of goes up and down with 2 back-to-back tunes. No Future, which I believe was originally going to be the leading single of the album, or what the album was titled after. I'm happy they didn't go with that, because as I said, for me, No Future doesn't quite click for me. And then it goes to Home in Such a Lonely Place, which you gotta say is the typical slow song that it seems like every album's gotta have. But unfortunately, it's okay, it's not a terrible song, but for me it doesn't quite hit, and doesn't have as much staying power as some of the other songs on the album. But luckily it gets straight into a great back-to-back combo, being Kings of the Weekend and Teenage Satellites. They're not right up there for my favourite songs on the track list, however, they're definitely a pick-me-up from what I think are some of the weaker songs on the album, being No Future and Home is Such a Lonely Place. Now, me saying Kings of the Weekend and Teenage Satellites, a great back-to-back combo, might make it sound like the rest of the album from there goes down. It doesn't. After that, you've got Left Alone, which I feel like a lot of people actually do enjoy, but for me, it just doesn't have a lot of staying power. It's not a bad song, just for me, it doesn't quite stick. However, following that up is once again one of the catchiest songs on the album, being Rabbit Hole, which I thought was the second single that came out. Maybe it was just the second song I heard. But as I said, one of the catchiest songs on the album as well. And that is also followed up by San Diego, which I'm so happy that San Diego is on the back of the album and Bored to Death is at the front, because those two songs have some of the most similar openings. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just play the first 10 seconds of Bored to Death and the first 10 seconds of San Diego, and dead set, it's almost the same riff. But anyway, San Diego, also a really, really good song. And then once again, it gets back to classic fast-paced Blink-182. Sorry, getting a bit tongue-tied there. Classic fast-paced Blink-182 with The Only Thing That Matters. It's, once again, a quick song, but this one, it has that staying power. It sticks, it's super catchy. It doesn't have the same sort of feel as Cynical or Built This Pool, where, you know, maybe from those ones you go, okay, they could have added a little bit more. No. The Only Thing That Matters, it's one of those short songs where, even though it went by so quick, you feel like you got your money's worth, or, you know, whatever saying you want to go with. It feels like it really fits. Then it goes to the title track of the album, California, which it starts off a little slow, but I love the choruses and the back half of that song. Really, really good. Unfortunately, for me, the album, with its final track being Bohemian Rhapsody, closes on a negative, because for me that song is 100% skippable. It only goes for like 30 seconds. You know, people are like, who cares, it goes for 30 seconds. I just think it's a complete bummer to close the album like that, because honestly, it doesn't even leave me wanting more, because I don't even like the song that much. However, it's the way that the album closes, and that's our track list for California. So it's been 6 years now since this album came out, and as I said, I remember being really excited for this album, and honestly, maybe at the time it came out, a little bit disappointed, because it wasn't quite what I wanted. I wanted classic, fast-paced Blink-182. I was missing Tom. I wasn't the biggest fan of Matt, if I'm being completely honest, but he definitely does have his moments in this album. As always, Mark is great. Travis is great. Travis Barker is one of the best drummers. I'd probably say he is the best drummer of all time. He's my favourite drummer of all time. They've still got those elements. As I said, Matt's not that bad. And now that I've matured, and as I said, I've listened to the album for 6 years, it does have staying power, which when the album first came out, it's something I was worried that it wasn't going to have, and I was going to grow sick of the album. Even though it's not up there with one of Blink's best, I definitely think this album still has some really, really good tracks that hold up for just Blink-182 standards in general. Even though there are a lot of weak ones too, I feel like this album is definitely one to check out, especially if you haven't listened to much new Blink-182. I know there's people that I've spoken to where they go, Enema of the State was the last Blink-182 album they listened to, because ever since then they haven't really cared, or maybe Take Off Your Pants and Jacket as well. Maybe Enema of the State was a bit of an exaggeration, but I feel like there's a lot of people that haven't given new Blink-182 a chance, and I definitely would recommend Blink-182's California. So even though the track list isn't perfect, it's a bit wavy, there's some things that they try that don't quite fit for me, and I feel like there was some missed opportunities on this album. I still think for the most part this album is a good time. So the rating I'm going to give Blink-182's California out of 10, I am going to give it a 7 out of 10. So guys, thank you for watching my first ever random album review. I know it didn't go perfect, I got a bit tongue-tied at parts. I find it hard to talk about albums compared to movies, if I'm being completely honest, but I had a good time doing it. Hopefully you guys come back for more. I'm going to try and have more content out there. I'm also going to have a sort of a second part to this video come out soon where I break down the track list a little more. So if you want to know my thoughts on the songs in particular and really break down each track, go to that. That will go up at the same time as this video. And as I said, Blink-182's California from 2016, a 7 out of 10. And thank you guys for watching.